Derrick Goold with us. By the way, please follow him on Twitter at @DGould. And he has been cranking out some good baseball stuff. It's not always easy to find content or cultivate content, but he's doing it. And also, I think, doing a really good job contributing to the coverage of the I guess I really can't call them negotiations because they're not negotiating for the collective bargaining agreement. Let's start with that only and get to kind of get that out of the way because, man, it's just it's unsettling that the owners in particular and Rob Manfred, they still don't seem to understand. There's not much of an appetite. Not that there is an appetite in normal times, but there's really very little, if any, appetite for some kind of prolonged labor battle that will interfere, disrupt, delay the beginning of the season if it comes to that. This is not the time for that kind of thing. And I know you share that frustration, even though you're covering it in a different way because you have to. You're not writing like these. I can run my mouth on this stuff and just state my opinions. You have to break down the issues, but it's just amazing me the tone deafness here.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little interesting. Like their comments are setting a pace that their actions isn't keeping. They say, well, we're taking a lockout in order to spur things along. We want to create some urgency. Then they don't make an offer for 40 to 43 days. So wait, so I thought you did the lockout to create urgency. Really, I mean, the truth of the matter is they created a lockout so that they could apply pressure to the players, thinking that they just wait the players out.
It really looks like their strategy is like, well, we'll frustrate the players, make them sweat, and they'll crack. Right. It just seems so simplistic, though, doesn't it?
It does. They've made such gains, the owners have, in recent CBAs. You go back to when Bill DeWitt Jr. was a part of the negotiating committee about 8-9 years ago to the current one. I mean, the owners have made significant gains, really as great gains as maybe they ever have since the introduction of free agency and the union and all that. I mean, they've done it incrementally, and they seem to be taking that same kind of approach here, where what incremental gains could they get in an area that they want, while basically tying up some of the interests that the players want in bureaucracy or Byzantine kind of rules. You think about like the adjustment to the draft and how complex that sounds, or tying tying some money and salary and the compensatory draft pick to whether or not they keep a top prospect on the roster, and that prospect then does well in an award voted on by baseball writers. I mean, it's just like that. That's a kind of a pretzel that a CBA hasn't bent into before, while not addressing the real kind of concerns some of the players have voiced, particularly about competitiveness and decreasing the value of those draft picks so that there isn't that interest in tanking, and then getting younger players paid more earlier to create a balance. Because right now, you've seen the average age in Major League Baseball drop, and that's because teams are going with the cheaper players sooner and shrinking careers. It's not necessarily because players are getting better earlier. It's that they're getting to the majors earlier, and in some of these cases of middle relievers and late inning relievers, they're then being moved out when they start to make some money via arbitration. They got to find a counterbalance to that.
Derrick, I'm gonna ask you something. I hope I can make this present this question to you in a sensible way that everyone will understand. I make no bones about it. I'm pro player on this just in general. But if there's going to be some stuff on the player side that I disagree with or I question, I will certainly talk about that too. I have, but this is what I want to ask you, because you're such a great observer of all this and both sides and understanding what each side wants to do, at least at this point. And you don't take sides because you're, again, as a reporter, you got to be totally objective about this, and you've done a great job of presenting it. But if we take the premise that there more and more people maybe will understand what the players are trying to do, and historically, as you know, for some unknown reason, people want to demonize the players in these things and, in effect, take the owner's side. Never been able to understand that, never will. But anyway, let me get to the point, and I apologize. What should the players be careful about? In other words, if a guy like me supports them, I'm assuming there's a lot of other people like me that supports their general view of this. What should they avoid to sort of puncture that goodwill? Where would they make a mistake along the way, even with people who support their position?
I think that's a great question. It's an interesting one because a lot of their arguments are based on making the game better for fans. And as long as they stick to that and can position it that way, I think, they'll do well. I think they could probably lose that argument if it seems like they're not trying to also argue for greater competitive interests, right? Like if they start to work towards a CBA and it's clear that younger players are going to get paid better, but tanking is still something that teams can do, and maybe even that's accelerated because now younger players are going to make more, then that would backfire on the players. Because right now their argument is based on, look, let's find a way to get the best talent on the field from the get-go, so get rid of the service time manipulation that, say, houses Chris Bryant in the minors when the Cubs would benefit from having him in the majors. And then also let's diminish this value that's been placed on the dream works of draft picks and teams being able to just, fantasize about the talent they're going to get and tank to do it. This notion that a team could spend to get to 82, but why do that? Because there's no return on that investment. When you don't spend, you get to 78 and you get a better draft pick. That has to kind of be addressed. And if the union lets that slide, then they've kind of lost the core element of their argument that they can make a case for bettering the game for fans. I think that's part of that. That's something new in this round, where the players have really been on message with this notion that some of the games that they want improve the game for the fans.
Yeah, and it's well said. So we'll see. And I don't know enough about their negotiator, and his name escapes me, and I apologize.
Bruce Meyer?
Yeah, I don't know much about him, and I've seen him be referred to, I think Ken Rosenthal did, that some people view him, and player agents included, as a, quote, obstructionist or whatever. So what do you know about him in terms of his ability to make a deal? In other words, he may be on the right side of this, but at the end of the day, at some point, you actually got to make a deal, and you can close a deal. What do you think about him? What do you think of him?
Well, I like him from the sense that there's an expert there who has past history of negotiations from other leagues. He was in the picture, as they say. No, well, literally, he was in the picture when the NBA came to an agreement, and he's in the back row there. So he's part of that. The NFL has had, he's had some involvement in that. So I'm a big fan of expertise, especially on, just all the time. If you can find an expert to be involved, do that and have respect for the expertise. And his resume says that he's an expert in this regard, not necessarily for baseball, but, he's got a lot of labor negotiations and labor savvy. I think one thing that gives me pause, and it's not necessarily related to him, though he's certainly a part of it, it's the overall tone that they have to win. I was asked in the chat the other day, what are the big issues? And I said, really, to me, they asked me what are the top five. And I said, really, to me, there's three here, that they are really focused on. One is getting younger players paid, as we've talked about, and the service time element of that, and then restoring something of the middle class when it comes to free agency, right? So that's one. That's sort of truly economic. Two is the competitive structure, right? Is what do they do with the draft? What do they do with the standings? What do they do with an expanded playoffs to eliminate the benefit of tanking, to just absolutely take away the benefit that teams get or the incentivizing of losing? How do they subtract that from the equation? And then number three is really driven by the owner's side, and that's opening up new streams of revenue. That would include expanding the playoffs, advertising on jerseys, advertising on batting helmets, things like that, right? Those would be the three main elements. What concerns me about the overall tone is that the sides want to win, and they see winning as going 2 for 3, not win one, lose one, draw. And as long as you're in a tug of war where they got to go 2 for 3 for it to be considered a win, then it's really problematic. I read a description once of like chess masters, right? Chess grandmasters, that they don't just want to win; they want to hurt the other opponent. They want the other opponent to break, and that's a real problem in negotiations if it's viewed that way. If you want to break the other side as opposed to just negotiate a deal, then it's going to take a while to come to one. And the overall tone of this is such that the owners have had such great wins, Bernie, over the last few years, that the union wants some back, and they don't want to lose an element, and that's concerning. If you want to have a conversation, you can't always have it be about winning. It has to be about winning together.
Derrick Goold with us a couple more minutes. We're keeping him a while, and these are, at least when we're talking about this stuff, it defies kind of cut and dry simple analysis. So I appreciate the depth that he's going into it with. But I did want to switch off and just ask you your opinion on a couple Cardinal baseball things. But
sure,
one about a former Cardinal. You follow the Hall of Fame tracker as I do, but what's your gut feeling? Sorry, lack of a better term, but what's your feeling about Scott Rowland? Is it going to be a close miss? Is most likely going to be a close miss that sets him up for next year? Just analyze that for us, please.
Yeah, I think it is trending towards a miss this year, in next year, or the year after that. I mean, it's not a question of if anymore; it's when. That's just the general overall tone. You have it. It could come as early as next year because you're going to have Bonds, Schilling, Clemens no longer on the ballot. So, that frees up the ballot for some to vote for him if they've been making that choice based on the lack, having to limit it to 10 votes. If he's been there 11th, then all of a sudden he can come on with the names coming off next year. So it's not an if anymore. It's real clear that there is a great momentum for him, deserving momentum for him, awareness of how great he was. An awareness of how that position is underrepresented in the Hall of Fame, an awareness of the all-around talent that it takes to play that position at a high level. And I think you're looking at a case where, it's Rowland and then it's Beltre, and third base starts to get its due a little bit more. And then, years from now, it'll be a discussion here in St. Louis as to what hat Nolan Arenado will wear when he goes into Cooperstown.
And it's always a little murky with the international signings. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not like there's all these pre-draft scouting reports you get in preparation of the annual. The scouting reports are out there and that are more thorough and got more information. All that. The international thing, there's always a little bit of a mystery or a lot of mystery to it. And it's tough to evaluate, hey, did this team do well? Did that team do well? But if we trust the information and we trust some independent evaluations, it seems like the Cardinals may have come up with a couple of really good prospects. And third, if you come up with if you include the high schooler from South Korea, who seems like certainly an intriguing prospect with potentially maybe not 5 tools, but close to it. So what do you think? How do you think the Cardinals did to the best of your knowledge?
I think they're not done yet, so the class will still get kind of fleshed out. There's still, December 15th is still, they have until December 15th. But I think that, the signing of Jonathan Mejia, switch hitting shortstop from the Dominican, he's 16 years old. He got a bonus higher than any player that young has gotten from the Cardinals. They got a little, they have really in recent years gone that. They haven't really gone to the top shelf. They're not doing the $4 million bonus like some of these teams did this year. But they really have kind of even at times stayed under the $1 million bonus and on for sort of quality of players at that level in hopes that one emerges or they develop, 2 to contribute, and then that's a big win. Going to $2 million for this young shortstop, I think is interesting because it's more aggressive than they've been. It speaks to the market of shortstops that was in this class. Not unusual because, it's not unusual the best players are shortstops because at that age, that's where they play. They're playing shortstop, they're playing center field, they're pitching or they're catchers, and it's where they grow and where the bat takes them that determines, their position as they rise. He has the 2 players that the Cardinals got, including Luis Rodriguez, the catcher from Venezuela. They're both considered above average offensive players for their age. And Mejia projects to be a above average offensive player at any middle infield position. So if he does in time go to second base, that bat still looks like it will be above average when it comes to power, when it comes to production at that spot too. I think I'm really intrigued by Wonbin Cho, the young man 18-year-old from South Korea, came to the States in August after opting out, or I guess September, after opting out of the KBO draft in August. It's unusual. It got a lot of attention, obviously, that he did that. And, he did that to kind of bet on himself and his ability. He put on a show at a power showcase back in November 2020 and, had the attention of scouts then. But really what the Cardinals saw and the work that he put in and the time they got with him in Atlanta ultimately sold him on making an aggressive bid. Not the only team to bid on him, but the Cardinals' relationship and the work that they've put in through the years to kind of expand their presence and their knowledge in Asia and in Korea. You think about the signings of Gung-Yun Kim and Seungwon Oh, and even in Japan, then bringing Miles Miklasz over. And, they made a play for Nick Martinez here recently. They have tried to become more of a presence there, and that helped them. Really, you're going to see what he does when he gets into, organized play like down in the Florida Complex League, because it's going to be clear against some caliber of talent, some consistent caliber of talent, where what you see as kind of showcase tools, how those play in games.
And I wanted to, as we wrap up our interview, and thank you for your time, I wanted to also tell people there's a really good podcast that you did with Jesse Sanchez, who really covers the international scene, with great depth over at MLB.com. So I just want to direct people, go to the Post-Dispatch, go to STL Today. You'll find that podcast, and you should listen to it because it's very educational about how the Cardinals went about their business with some of those guys, especially Cho, the South Korean, but about all the guys, the guys that are the highest rated people that they signed. So there's good background on there. So I'm not doing a good job getting the words out today, man. I apologize. So, but thanks for.
All right. We're both writers for a reason, right?
That's right. But I sometimes when I'm just like fired up or I figure like, oh, I better get to a break or whatever. It's the worst thing I can do because then I start stammering all over the place. So anyway, I just got to slow down a little. Hey, listen, man, I love you. Thanks for your time today. And we'll be reading you at the Post-Dispatch and STL Today and following you on Twitter at @DGould. And once again, thank you for the card and
of course
the best of luck to Marvel.
Yeah,
as she gets used to the Goold family and vice versa. So
Yeah,
Thank you, pal.
she already chewed through one of my computer cords, so she'll have to be a little bit. We'll have to work a little bit on how she behaves on deadline.
Yeah, you got to keep a list of infractions. You got to get the good stuff out of the way, man. Because you collect things, and it's just like, man, you may need to have a safe room or something. So
yeah, good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, you're right.
Well, tell Erica we said hello, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Bye.
That's our friend Derrick Goold here on 590 The Fan. KFNS. See, I'm slowing down now, Jim Hewer. I'm kind of getting that laid-back host vibe.
That's okay. It's okay to be laid back.
Welcome to the show.
Hey.
I'm going to change my persona in 2022. What do you think?
Well, that's up to you. You're more than welcome to do it. You know me. Maybe, I'll roll with whatever you want to do. That's fine with me.
Maybe in the 5 o'clock hour each day, it's like a different persona. I'll be the calm, speaking like one of these people that are professional podcasters.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
There's a subject I'd really like to discuss with all of you today. What do you think? Could that be my 5 o'clock persona?
Oh, my gosh. That would be dangerous. Cardinal left fielders. Let's discuss them when we come back from the break.
Yeah, Jimmy Hewer, one of the more interesting Cardinals is this Brendan Donovan. Now, I would like to take a minute to explain who he is and how he fits into the Cardinals' future. Are we talking immediate future, or is it a bit of a long-range future? Either way, he's a very intriguing prospect. And this is the time I think we should introduce you to Brendan Donovan. So I think we should do that.
Oh, anyway. My gosh.
Now, you don't like it. See, I can tell.
Oh, that would be dangerous.
Yeah, it would.
Oh, no.
It may be better than me stammering all the time when I get all fired up. But anyway.
That's all good.
That's part of my charm, I guess.
It is.
I hope.
We all have things that are strange about all of us.